Antimatter radio show live from West Lafayette, Indiana on Tuesday, June 30 at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. My name is Jeffrey Grupp. I am a former college professor at Purdue University, Indiana University, Western Michigan University, Grand Valley State University, and Jackson Community College. I'm happy to say I wear a badge of honor with the fact that I was fired from the last two schools I worked at because, well, the universities and I did not agree. I consider that a strength on my part because I'm reporting information that is apparently not permissible, empirical scientific information not permissible by certain factions of power in our society. I mean, you can't get on TV and say certain things. You can't get on TV and say that the TV stations lied to us for a decade about the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and now we're in this stupid war because of it, or should we call it an occupation. You can't get on TV and say certain things like that. You can't say that in a university because if the administration finds out, they will not be happy with you. So uncensored information is what comes on this radio show. That's why I like doing this radio show better than teaching. That's why I have not sought to get another teaching job, even though I could, and even though I've had a couple offers from various schools. I'm not interested in that right now. Anyways, I'm in West Lafayette, Indiana tonight, and it's a beautiful, absolutely still, cool evening. Perfect summer evening. Perfect evening to explore exactly what it is we humans are and what we're doing in this universe. So let's start that off with an absolutely critical topic. When I was on the Alex Jones show recently, I started talking about a number of topics about how there's evidence of intelligent design of our solar system. I just want to say before I start going, I've been up since 5 a.m. and I've done 5 hours of TV interviews today and 1 hour of radio already, so I'm spent, so hopefully this show will go smoothly. If it gets a little weird, you know why. So let's continue. When I was on the Alex Jones show, I discussed possible evidence for intelligent design of our solar system, and I've gotten enormous emails in response to that because I did not finish discussing that on the Alex Jones show because there was not enough time on his intense, wonderful, fast-paced show, and so therefore I intend to discuss that a little bit more here right now as we get into this show tonight. Okay, now, first of all, as you probably can get the indication from past shows, especially last week's show, I'm not really interested in discussing evidence that's flimsy or questionable. I like the real solid evidence, okay? I like things that are very easy to see, and you can call me lack of an explorer for that. Well, in my own time, I can explore more speculative things, but when I'm on the radio or on TV, I like to discuss things that are very low risk in how much, how good or bad of evidence they are. Okay, I like things that are very solid. Okay, so what we're about to discover here, what we're about to discuss here, is extremely solid evidence for what could be a fact that our solar system is a product of design. Something created it. Okay, it's not the product of random evolution. Okay, so first let's discuss how our experts in the universities describe solar system creation. They have a pretty, I will say, a pretty interesting theory. It could be, there could be some facets of truth to it. It could be that whatever created our solar system sort of steered it in the way our experts in the astronomy departments and the physics departments describe our solar system have been created. So let's just get right into it. Okay, what astronomers tell us is that our solar system was the product of a sun that blew up. It exploded. Actually, there were two that exploded before us. Okay, so what that created was a huge cloud of particles in space after that explosion that was spread out for some distance. Okay, now there's good evidence that this is, I mean, there's some evidence that this could be how solar systems form, because when you look out in the sky, this is how we see these all over our galaxy, these dust clouds. Okay, and we can even kind of see, early stages of where solar systems are forming, and so forth. So it's a pretty decent theory here that the experts have. So anyways, what happens to this cloud is gravitation sets in, and gravitation is some sort of, I'm a little bit worried about describing it the way many academics do, as a pulling force between pieces of matter, because first of all, they don't always attract pieces of matter. They just attract things that don't seem very material, such as particles of light. And also, we don't know when I say gravity is a pulling force, nobody really knows what pulling force means. Okay, nobody's ever seen the pulling, nobody's ever seen the force. All we know is that pieces of matter and particles of light and anything that we really know of in the universe has a tendency to move towards each other. Okay, now there are also things such as anti-gravity, but I don't want to discuss those right now. Let's discuss those later. Okay, that's very important. We'll talk about it some other time. Okay, so what happens to the dust cloud after these previous stars blew up is that the particles started to attract again, sort of an expansion, contraction, and then the third expansion and contraction, explosion, condensation, explosion, condensing. The third cycle is what we're in. And what happens is everything, all the particles start to attract, and the more dense particles go towards the center of the cloud, and then the less dense ones stay on the ends. So you have to kind of think of I'm just going to kind of skip along with this fast here so we don't get bogged down in the details, because this isn't really what I want to focus on. I can explain in precise detail, but you can go look it up if you want, and I don't really want to focus on this for the whole time. So I'll just skip to the details. When you look at your toilet, when you flush it, the water spirals down, okay? Now, for similar, not identical, but similar reasons, when the particles of this gas cloud condense down, they spiral. Okay, so then we get a whirling motion, and then the various densities of particles go in the center of this swirling cloud, and then some that are less dense go a little bit further out, and then less dense and then a little bit further out, and so forth. So rings are created, and those rings bunch up gravitationally to form clumps. So what you have now is the spiral turns into a clumping, or a cloud where now it is such where there are clumps swirling around a central clump. Okay, and these form spherical items, so that becomes the sun and the planets and so forth. So it's a pretty good theory that the experts have. It's very logical and simple. That doesn't mean it's correct, of course. I've seen lots of logical and simple theories fall straight on their you-know-what, such as Darwinian evolution, as we discussed in Antimatter radio shows number 1, 2, and 3. So here's the thing, though. If we study the precise mechanics, that mechanics means the ways that these planets and our sun and our solar system move with respect to one another, and their sizes with respect to one another, we find some incredible oddities. Let me give you one example right here off the bat. Okay, consider that our moon does not rotate in the sky. It does not spin around, but yet it circles around the Earth. That is an utter anomaly, and to my knowledge, nobody can even explain theoretically how that's possible. Now, let me explain what that means, what I just said means. Now, there's one thing to come up with an explanation and prove something. That means you can show someone with their eyes how something works. That's called proof, if you can show them with their eyes. Now, another thing is to not be able to show someone with their eyes how something works, but you can come up with various theories on how something can work, and you don't know which one is correct. You have to go verify it. You have to go prove which one is right. And then there's another thing to not even be able to come up with theories. Okay, that's where the moon lies. Okay, and it's a crime that your television and newspapers and churches and all this stuff, which is giving you information your whole life, has never told you any of this. Okay? The moon doesn't rotate. That doesn't make any sense. Nobody can explain it. Also, the moon's center of mass is off-center. Okay, what does this mean? This means that with the Earth, the most dense part of the Earth is directly in the center of the Earth. And then there's, progressively it gets less dense as you get to the surface in a symmetrical way. So the most dense part is at the center, and then it forms a ring around that, like an onion. Okay? Well, the moon does not work that way. The moon's center of mass is off-center. It's as if the center of the onion, where the onion, by analogy, that the concentric rings become more and more dense as you go towards the center. If you could, by analogy, imagine that an onion was the moon or the earth or something. The onion center is right where the center of the onion is. Okay, so by analogy, the center of the most massive and dense part of a planet is right where the center is, and then it gets progressively less dense. That's what we mean by the center of mass is at the center. The most dense part is at the center. Now, it doesn't work that way for the moon. And I cannot explain to you how much that's an utter contradiction and does not make any sense, and nobody can ever explain that in a million years. Why? Because it's basically impossible according to the way the experts describe planetary formation. They basically say that particles, gravitationally come together, and they can't form a square, for example, because the pointy parts would be pulled in. They can't form an oval because the long parts would be pulled in. If you have sufficient matter or particles coming together to form an astronomical body, they have to form a sphere, and they have to form one concentrically, more and more dense, and the most dense parts at the center. So if you have a center of mass that's off-center, we've got a major mystery here. So there's two major mysteries here with the moon. What do you know? Now, in the first Antimatter radio show, I did allude to the fact that there are just unbelievable mysteries regarding our moon. It's interesting how some of the religions, such as the religions of Mesoamerica, the Aztecs and so forth, said thousands of years ago, that the moon didn't exist. So that implies that if those religions are correct, the moon came into existence at some time very recently. Now couple that with the fact that we've got some serious oddities here. I mean, when I say serious, I am understating the issue. These oddities are absolutely unfathomable. And it only leads to one conclusion, that the way the experts describe the moon is incorrect. The moon has to be, we don't know why it's there doing what it's doing. Now, the thing is we've got more mysteries here. Let me give you another one. I'm not done with the moon yet. Now, consider this. The moon is the exact same size and appearance as the sun. In other words, when you're standing on Earth and you look at the sun and you look at the moon, they appear to you to be the same size. Okay? Now, what that means is that the sun is 400 times further away from the Earth than the moon is, so therefore the moon is 1/400th the size of the sun. In other words, the sun is 400 times larger. So they appear exactly the same. Now, there's slight variations because the moon's orbit is elliptical, so we're talking about the average orbit, the average distance of the moon from the Earth. That's why when you see a solar eclipse, the eclipse will show the sun and the moon basically being the same size. Okay, and the moon can block out the sun perfectly, or just about perfectly, depending on where it is in its elliptical orbit around the Earth. So there's unbelievable moon mystery number 2. That's so astonishing. That's so mysterious that I think it was Isaac Asimov said the moon just should not exist. It's just so mysterious. But we're not done. We got another mystery here with the moon. Now consider something else. I wish I had a diagram to show you all, because it'd be easier than to describe this. So I'm just going to do it quickly, and hopefully all of you will follow along. If you make a line of the light, I don't know if I can explain this. We need a diagram. Well, anyway, I'll say it in one sentence, and if you understand, great. If you don't, move on. The sun, when the moon blocks out the sun in an eclipse, it forms a dot on the surface of the Earth. There'll be one tiny place where it's black, and it turns into night because the moon is blocked out. What that forms is a perfect triangle if you make a line from the point of darkness on Earth to the surface of the sun to the surface of the moon, it forms a perfect triangle. Okay, so you'll have to go look that up yourself if you don't understand what I mean, because it would take me 10-20 minutes to explain what I'm talking about, and it would be too tedious and boring. So we have some extraordinary, this is, let's just say what this really is. The moon is not the product of accidental random evolution. Okay, and if you think that sounds weird, then you're just simply denying what I just said. Where does the evidence that I just got come from about the moon? It comes from the astronomers, the experts in the labs in our universities and at NASA and so forth. Okay, there's more mysteries also, which I'll get to. I'm looking at them right now on my computer screen. But let's just leave it at that so we can discuss the conclusion of this. And the point here is that we have an absolutely dumbfounding, earth-shattering, no pun intended, mystery here. That something created the moon, and according to our religions recently, now there's something interesting here also, our scientists can't figure this out. Okay, if you go tell somebody in the university that the moon is a product, if something made it, it can't be a product of spontaneous solar system evolution, they will probably call you names, laugh at you, and say mean things. No exaggeration. Go try it and see if I'm right. Okay. Now, on the other hand, our religions, such as our Mesoamerican religions, have told us something that might be true that the scientists haven't even figured out yet, the contemporary scientists, and that is that there's something pretty funny about the moon, and it was created, and it may have been created recently, and it was created presumably by some intelligence, of course. Okay, because how could you have all these nice and neat and tidy mathematical issues? So now here's the thing. You can expand this discussion I'm having to the whole solar system. The solar system everywhere, Sun, Moon, Earth system, Venus, Jupiter, Neptune, all have these oddities everywhere. Okay? There are all these neat and tidy mathematical calculations that nobody will discuss in the New York Times, nobody will discuss on the news and Fox News and all this stuff. Nobody will discuss, nobody even knows about this, I guess, even though there's books written on it, such as the book I'm staring at and holding in my hands, which is called Beginnings, The Sacred Design by Bonnie Gaunt. So if you want to know about these topics I'm talking about, I suggest you get that book and read pages 20 through 100 or further. She talks about these kinds of mathematical, neat and tidy mathematical numbers showing up in everything, DNA, light, sound, metrics, everything. So it's there's something on the antimatterradio.com website, which is the website for this radio show. It says on, I need to go to that to read the quote. It says on the very top page, we have now discovered that there is no such thing as matter. It is different rates of vibration designed by an unseen intelligence. And the only place I've seen that's Max Planck, a very famous scientist from 1918. Now, the only place, I've never seen that quote before, but except in Walter Crutchenden's book, Lost Star, which I've discussed on this radio show many times. It's one of the, I would say, most earth-shattering, unbelievable, must-read books of our time. It's the true story of history, is what's in that book. And the evidence is rock solid. You have to read it for yourself. It's a scientific book. It's an empirical book. No, it's not some speculative, theoretical book like you read in our universities. Okay, so this quote by Max Planck is quite prescient, I suppose, due to the fact that he's discussing what we're discussing here. The universe, from what we've discussed briefly here so far tonight, and which I could go into in much more detail, in which Bonnie Gaunt goes into in her incredible book, Beginnings, the universe is the product of something created it. There is no random, godless universe. Okay, now, as some of you know from hearing me on the Alex Jones show, some of you know that I used to be a very fiery atheist, and I was very happy with that. And actually, I stumbled upon some of this evidence that we're discussing here quite unhappily a few years ago. And so therefore, if I'm going to be a true researcher, I have to follow the evidence. I can't just make up some agenda and push it and come up with a bunch of theory, non-empirical garbage to push the agenda. That's what goes on in the university. That's, the carbon causes global warming theory, stuff like that. Okay, so if I'm going to be a real scholar, a real academic, I have to follow the evidence. And we've got an evidence that I'm discussing here that is absolutely simple, clear, and enormous, that our solar system, and if you read Bonnie Gaunt's book, quite a bit more than that, such as our galaxy and our DNA and so forth, is the product of design. Okay? So am I saying God or something? I don't know. All I know is that it's the product of design. Okay? Now, when we say the word God, it's a little difficult to talk about that word because everybody immediately has some pre-established idea in their mind of what that thing is. Okay? And I would encourage all of you to get rid of that concept in your mind of whatever that thing is and just flush it down the toilet. Okay? Whatever God is, trust me, whatever this unseen intelligence, this creative force, this creator, or cosmos is, and the creator of you, this thing is beyond your language. Okay, so your little word God is not going to get you anywhere. Okay, I have one suggestion. If you're going to try to know this thing, I would not approach it through language. I would approach it through feeling. That's just my suggestion, but I will not confess, I will not purport being an expert on this topic. I'm not going to tell you if I think I am an expert or not. I'm just going to be pretend to be humble here, okay, with respect to that awesome topic. Awesome, notice awe is at the beginning of that word. That's why I chose that word. So anyways, it could be that there's an alien force that designed all this stuff. It would seem to me that a creator such as God is a better description than that, because if we're talking about an alien force that can design whole universes, well, that kind of sounds more like the description of God or Elohim, which is plural, as we discussed last week, than it does sounds like just a bunch of super intelligent space creatures flying around in their spaceships. The point is, though, is who knows? Who knows which is right? And I don't want to push either theory. I like both of them. Okay, so notice their theories, though. I can't sit here and point to you that the unseen intelligence that Max Planck talks about in his quote is A or B. Okay, all I know is it's there. Okay, we've got massive evidence that they will never tell you on the Discovery Channel. They will never tell you on the National Geographic Channel. They'll never tell you this in church. They'll never tell you this in school. But it's right in front of your face. Okay, it makes you up. It's in your DNA. These patterns and numbers. It's in the sky. It's in the ground. It's everywhere. Okay, if you just look a little harder, I'll give you a hint of something else to look up. Look up the golden ratio, PHI. That's another interesting mathematical number that shows up all over the universe, and there's no real reason that it should show up. Okay, it's not like pi or something, which is supposed to show up everywhere because it's just the natural product of all kinds of equations and mathematical language describing matter. Phi is something different. You would not expect it to show up, but it shows up everywhere. That's very interesting. I don't really know of any very good books to discuss with you about Phi because I've been trying to find good books on it myself. There's some interesting stuff on the internet about it, but basically there's a lot of bogus stuff too. I've noticed, curiously, there's a big movement on the internet to make sure to try to describe, like if you go to Wikipedia and look up the golden ratio, you'll see all kinds of descriptions of how, the golden ratio doesn't describe anything in nature. It's a conspiracy theory. If you're not figuring it out by now, listeners, whenever you hear that from a big establishment entity like Fox News or CNN or Wikipedia or Time Magazine or something like that, one of these mega churches or something, whenever you hear them say A is false, and they make fun of it and say A is a conspiracy theory, and you're crazy if you believe A. Oh, but we don't have any evidence against A. We're just telling you that it's so. You know right there that you're onto something, okay? Now, some of you may not know what I'm talking about when I say this, but trust me, this is how it works. And this show is more, I know in 2 shows ago I discussed the New World Order for the whole show. And that is, of course, a area of expertise of mine due to my book Corporatism, and then The Telescreen is a book coming out in just a couple weeks that I have, which are about that. But this show is more about my passions, which are more spiritual topics and consciousness and the ancient religions and alternative history and meditation and so forth. So I don't want to get into that too much, but if you go and discover the nature of the secret government that controls our world, our social world, and much of our natural world too, you will find that they have a drive to teach you non-reality. So if there's something that's true, such as call it A, or let's call it X, if X is true, they will put all over their schools, all over their churches, and all over their TV that X is not true. And I know some of you are probably thinking, oh, it could never be this well coordinated, and that's never happened before. But the simple fact is it's happened so much that it is the definition of history. The Nazis and Stalin and Ku Klux Klan, and there are all kinds. This is the way it works. The power groups always get together in secret. They act real nice and put on nice suits and ties and smile real nice, and nobody could ever imagine what they really are. But what they really are is bloodthirsty, horrific, savage barbarians that want to do nothing but harm people. That's the story of history. That's the medieval kings. That's Joseph Stalin. That's Rwanda. That's close to home, too. Let's just put it that way. Okay? And I know none of you would ever guess it. You all think that all these politicians you see on TV, oh, they couldn't be like that. They're so nice. Guantanamo Bay. Oh, whoops, we don't want to talk about that because that proves what I just said, right? That proves that these smiling suits on TV are savage killers. Okay? They're nothing but that. Okay? Guantanamo Bay is a death camp. I know you hear on Fox News it's a fun resort and everybody's taken care of so nice, and they only have torture for a couple hours a day. You're being lied to, just like the mass media has lied to you on everything else, including these wars that we're in and the war that we're about to go in with Iran. Okay, so time to wake up. Time to become a big boy, a big girl. Okay, enough of this. We got to take the pacifier out of our mouth and not act like little dependent children who have to have everything told to us to believe it. Okay. So anyways, back to the point here, and I'm not going to sit here and explain it. If you believe me, great. If you don't, then go research it or find another show or something if you aren't following this. But the point is if you're told something in the mass information systems of our country, if you're told that X is false and they make fun of it and so forth, that means you're onto something, okay? I mean, how many times have we seen this? You know, how many people were made fun of before Iraq for questioning, are there really weapons of mass destruction? And then you're a conspiracy theorist if you didn't believe it. And that was going on for the year and a half before the Iraq War. And oh, look what, they were right. I wrote a book called Corporatism. The subtitle of it is called The Secret Government of the New World Order. Okay, and I was mocked and ridiculed. I won't even share with you the personal details that have happened to me, and they are quite horrific, some of them, about how I was attacked over writing a book about the New World Order, because I was told I was crazy, it doesn't exist, even though there's rock-solid proof. See it with your own eyes science, as we discussed last week. See it with your own eyes proof that it exists. I was mocked and so forth, and people wouldn't believe it. But then kind of a funny thing happened last fall. The mass media started, I couldn't believe it. They started announcing that it exists. Time magazine, CNN, everywhere. It was every day we'd hear about the New World Order this, the New World Order that, and then well, needless to say, those same people attacking me started to shut up. So anyways, let's get back on our topics of our show before I ruin the whole show talking about these other topics. So we basically, I think every show here we're discussing just absolute bombshell, unfathomable information, which is not discussed anywhere, but it's all so clear. You can simply see it with your own eyes. It's perfect science, as we discussed last week. See it with your own eyes kind of means proof, doesn't it? I mean, I'm not going to say it does, but it's pretty close. So we got another one here tonight. Our solar system and our universe, and we can say things like our bodies and so forth too, are the products of design, and yet our universities and schools You can get you can get kicked out of a biology department for purporting these ideas. I don't know if you can get kicked. I don't think an astronomy department you'd get kicked out of at all. But some university departments, they will not accept what you have to say. I think even some of these churches wouldn't even go with this. I mean, I don't even know where these churches are at. But one thing is clear: the religions of the world, once again, as we discussed every single show, they were on this all along. They have the truth. We're talking about all the different religions, because as we've said in past shows, they're all basically telling the exact same story. But once again, as we've said from early on, and from Antimatter Radio Show number 1 till tonight, the religions are telling us, giving us the true story. They have the truth. The evidence is with them, and the clear, see it with your own eyes, proof science can be found to support their story. Because the religions of the world talk about God and or gods being creators. That universe and reality and humans are designed, as we've talked about past shows, such as last week. So, there you go. Even the churches, I think, aren't even nearly as sophisticated as we're talking about now. Those churches that still will talk about such information as we're talking about right now. So let's talk about a couple more of these. Since we're on these topics, I'm just going to discuss a few more of these. There's quite a few more of these mysteries with the moon and there's. I'm looking at some here on my computer screen with the moon and the sun and the Earth, that system. Well, anyway, these are too complicated. I think I'm just going to leave it at that and move on to some other issues. Okay, so you know what I want to talk about? I'm just scrolling down here on my computer screen. I want to talk about, we'll talk about that later. We're going to talk about the Platonic realm, but I'll need to give you some warm-up, which I'm not ready to do tonight. Okay, I'm looking at a set of topics here on my computer to move on to something else. Let's talk about, since we're talking about astronomical topics, let's stay on that. And let's try to get two more. Let's try to talk about UFOs and the pulsar theory for extraterrestrials here in the next, those are good topics where I don't have to think too much. I am absolutely burned out, tired, as I discussed earlier. So those are some good ones. Okay, let's see, which one should we do first? Let's do the pulsar theory for extraterrestrials. Okay, now this is a theory which some of you have maybe heard me talk about on Dr. Deagle's Medical Report radio show. I talked about it one time. This theory is probably, notice it is a theory, I said, but it's there's different levels of how strong theories are. There's total garbage, junk theories with nothing to even make it even remotely support that they could be true, such as that carbon causes harm to humans and causes global warming, or the idea that humans are the product of natural selection from chimpanzees. Okay, so then there's stronger theories, and then there's very strong theories, and then there's things that seem to be see with your own eyes, scientific proof. Okay, this pulsar theory is pretty close to see with your own eyes. There's more. It's along the same lines of all this design that we just got done talking about. So that's why it's a good topic to talk about right now. So let's just get right to it. Okay, to my knowledge, the person who came up with this theory is Dr. Paul Laviolette. I'm standing up here to get his book off my bookshelf, and he has a book that he wrote called Decoding the Message of the Pulsars, published a couple years ago by Adventures Unlimited, one of the better publishers, I would say, in America. Now, Laviolette, to my knowledge, discovered this, or he's at least the one that's popularizing it. And on page, I think it is 11 of his 10 and 11, yeah, especially, and 12, page 12 is the page of this book, pretty much proves, well, he says I think he wants to go with the idea that it proves extraterrestrial life is present all over our galaxy. And it very well could prove that. Let's just go through it and then let's analyze it, okay? The way the theory works is as follows. Okay, there are, in the solar system, sorry, not the solar system, in the galaxy, everybody knows what a galaxy is. It's a big collection of stars. These pods of stars are all over the universe, and gravitationally, stars are pulled together, held together, and by, well, who knows exactly why. There's experts have their theory, but I'm not going to go over that right now, why they're all together, not spread out uniformly throughout the universe or something. And there they are. Our galaxy is called the Milky Way. Big collection of something like 1 trillion or maybe a little less than that stars. All right? So I think it was 1968 or 69, there was a graduate student, I think she was at Caltech, who made a discovery. I think she got the Nobel Prize in physics for this just wonderful, beautiful discovery that she made. And that was that when she looked at some stars in our galaxy, they were flashing. Okay, they were not continuous beacons of light. They were flashing on and off at incredible rates, 1 million times a minute and stuff like that. Needless to say, back in the late 60s, this put the whole astronomical community on its head. Everybody was, for a while, thinking they discovered extraterrestrial life. That's interesting that they came to that initial conclusion. What's more interesting also is then, shortly after, a theory was developed. Notice I said theory. I emphasize that word very strongly because this is one of those real weak theories. A theory was developed called the neutron star lighthouse model, is what Laviolette calls it. It's got a couple names, so let's just go with that one, to explain this. And as soon as that theory was developed, everybody kind of forgot the idea that it could be extraterrestrials, and everybody went with this theory. Now it's just, you go talk to an astronomer, and they'll just act like it's established fact that what these pulsars are is a certain kind of star called a neutron star, and they won't talk about it any further. And if you ask them about that, they'll start talking about it as if it's fact. There's a slight problem with it, though. Nobody's ever seen one, and there's absolutely no empirical scientific proof that they exist. It's philosophy, okay, and not very good philosophy at that. That what is the cause of these flashings that we see are these neutron stars. Okay, so the problem is neutron star basically is believed to be an ultra dense star that has a beacon of light coming out a pole, one of its poles or both of its poles, and it's sort of like a lighthouse in the night flashing, spinning around. And if you get caught in the lighthouse's beam, you'll see a pulse of light, pulse, 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 and that's what a neutron star is believed to be. Notice I said believed. Okay, the problem. Okay, so and here's the deal. Let's just get right to it. If that's true, then they have to be regular because they're orbiting on a circular motion. They have to be regular pulses of the neutron star. That's very straightforward, of course, just like the lighthouse. The problem is that they are not. Okay, here's the thing. Let's just keep going here. Astronomers have discussed pulsars as being the most regular objects in the known universe. Now that's true, okay? Because if you take the pulses over a certain amount of time, say a minute or something, you always have the exact same number of pulses, exact. Okay, but if you then dissect all the pulses in that minute, you find out that they vary. They're not the same from 1 minute to the next in how far the pulses are spaced from one another. Okay? So let me just sum this up. You've got the same number of pulses. Sorry. You've got the different number of, you've got the same number of pulses over this minute that you measure the pulses coming from the pulsar. And they are, however, from each minute, they have a different pattern of pulses within them. That, people, is intelligence, okay? That is not a random entity, okay? That is pure intelligence, okay? It's funny because I told this to, when I used to teach college, I would do polls in my classes and say, how many of you are Christian? And there would always be like 50 to 80% would raise their hands. And then I would run this pulsar theory of extraterrestrials by them, and they would all laugh and say it was ridiculous. But if you pay attention closely, these kids were not thinking. They were not putting two and two together. The pulsar theory may not be a theory for extraterrestrials. It may be a theory for design of our solar system. Okay, and if it is, that's evidence for Creator God. Okay, so these poor kids were who have been fed TV and bad education systems through their whole life. They were too reactionary to put this together. So they're good kids, though, so don't want to hold that against them. It's not their fault. So anyway, let's get back to this astounding theory, unfathomable theory, unfathomable because it's just so contrary to everything we've been told. So basically what we have, let's sum it up quickly. What we have is, when we look out in the sky, there's some flashing lights. We think they look like stars, but look at them closely, they're flashing entities, and they have very specific mathematical patterns to them. Absolutely unbelievable. Okay, now, we don't know that these are stars either, okay? We call them pulsars or neutron stars and stuff. We don't know what they are. All we see is a flashing light coming our way. How does anybody really know what they are until you drive your spaceship over there and see what they are? The answer is you don't. All we know is it's flashing mathematical light. Now, here's another one of these issues that is not on the news. It's not in the churches. I mean, nobody's discussing this. This is absolutely earth-shattering information. It seems like we're getting constantly on this show. And who's talking about it? No, everybody's talking about Michael Jackson just died. Who cares? Okay? I mean, even people that I know that I respect are, all stirred up over that one. Hey, he's just a guy, all right? We all die. All right? And no disrespect to him, but there's more important things going on to our fate as humans than that. Okay, there's bigger issues. Okay, I don't want to belittle someone's death, and it is, of course, it's upsetting. I would like to give my condolences to the family, but let's get over it. Let's get past it. When I die, don't sit around and mourn. Keep going. Keep the human progress going. Let's figure this out. Let's figure what's going on, who we are. Let's attain religious consciousness. Okay. So anyway, let's interpret now this information of the pulsar theory of intelligence in our galaxy. Now, like I just said, it could be like with the moon and solar system and everything we talked about earlier in this show. I guess this show tonight is the Evidence for Intelligent Design show. That's what I'll title it on the antimatterradio.com website. So there is, it could be evidence for extraterrestrials have created some sort of beacons for who knows why. Laviolette actually has a theory as to why. I'll get to that in a second. Or it could be evidence of intelligent design of a creator God. Okay, I'm not sure which theory is right, but again, we've got these two theories, and you'll have to take your pick because I can't. Since these are theories, I can't give you which one is the right one. I've got my own opinion, but I'm going to keep that to myself for now. There's some other interesting things about the pulsars also. The certain distance that the pulsar... Well, anyway, just cut to it quickly. The way the pulsars are spread across the galaxy is not random, okay? You don't have a uniform flow of pulsars across the galaxy. If they were stars, you'd think they would because stars show up just wherever stars are, so you'd have a certain... If they're just kind of star, just like every other star, you have a certain percentage of them wherever the stars are. If 5% of the stars in the galaxy were the X kind of star, then wherever you look, you'd see approximately 5% of those kinds of stars. Well, that's not what you get with neutron stars. The neutron stars are condensed at the center, the central parts of the galaxy, and I think that the number that they extend is phi parsecs. That's a distance. I think that's what it is. In every direction, top, side, bottom, down. There's that number phi that we talked about earlier. You're starting to see how this all works, and you're starting to see the travesty of the education that you've been given through your life, that all of this has been hidden from you. I mean, what are you learning about in your college? You're learning about all this junk, who knows what. You're learning about global warming or something. Of course there's global warming. There's been global warming. How many times has global warming happened? The temperature of the Earth changes all the time, through the epochs, through the eons. So, deal with it. I mean, anyways, let's move on. Don't want to ruin the show with that ridiculous topic. So this is pretty exciting that we can know these kinds of things about ourselves that we've discussed in this show tonight. And I think that we need to take this really seriously because these give us clues to who we are, what we are. Okay, I think we've established pretty well, show after show, that what we've been told we are as humans is, we're supposed to believe we're stupid chimpanzees. And I use the word stupid there deliberately because it's exactly what we're told. We're supposed to not think that we're intelligent. We're just dumb animals. Okay, but as we've discussed, no, we're pieces of God. Okay, we're pieces of holy consciousness. Okay, all the religions discuss that, just like in John 10:34 in Christianity, and Colossians 3:11 in Christianity, or Genesis 1. The other religions say the same thing, and we need to have a human revolution, okay, on planet Earth. We need to have it, the populace, the working people, the everyday people need to run this revolution. We don't want this revolution run by our TV stations and the wealthy globalist New World Order. Okay, and it needs to start. Where does this revolution need to start? In two places. It needs to start from the recognition of the information we're getting in this radio show that everything we've been told is a lie and we are divine creatures. Okay? And if there's any Christians who are listening to this show who are saying, oh no, we're not divine, God is divine and everything else isn't, then can you do me a favor? Don't ever listen to this show again. Okay? Turn it off and go listen to the 700 Club or something, because that's what you should be listening to. All right? Because that's not biblical, and I'm sick of it. Okay? If you want to think that humans are stupid slaves and are not special and we have to be God's sheep or something, what sheep are, they just follow and can't think, then go listen to something else. All right? Because that's not what any of the religions say. If you want to make up interpretations, go ahead. Okay? So, anyway, back to the topic. A human revolution, a renaissance needs to commence. Okay? Because we've got everything we need. We've got all the information that we've been talking about the show. We've got telementation. That's really where it should center from. The most powerful religious force in the cosmos, the cosmos is powered by is telementation, which is my book. It's supposed to be coming out today. I checked Amazon a little while ago. My publisher said it was probably going to be up there, and I didn't see it, so hopefully by next week. It takes a lot to get a book published, people. We've got all this information. We've got religious experience, telementation. We've got the true history, such as in Cruttenden's book, Lost Star. We've got all these. We've got natural medicine and alternative spirituality, and all these tools for us. We have everything we need. As Dr. Len Horowitz says, he's coming up, I think, in 2 hours on this show, and everybody should listen to him on his wonderful show. If you like this show, I think you'll love that one. We need to follow his, leads like what he describes for us. We don't need to be afraid of anything. We have every tool we need. Okay, all we need is to do the things that give us power as humans. What gives us power? When you take vitamin C. Remember 3 weeks ago, everybody, when I told you I had an incredible headache and I didn't know why? I figured out why I had that headache. It was because of stress, because my wife and I are doing a financial transaction currently, which is very stressful. Okay, if any of you have saved up any money and moved that money around and stuff, it can be very nerve-wracking, especially when you have, children that you want to have profit off of that money in the future. So anyways, it turned into a storming, raging migraine the next day. And I researched on the internet, couldn't find any cures. We went down to the health stores, wonderful health stores around the corner. They said, we don't really know what you can do for migraines. By sheer coincidence, I would call it telementation, but call it what you want. My wife happened to make me, that middle of that day, some vitamins, some fresh squeezed natural orange juice from good organic oranges. And guess what happened to my migraine? It, in just about 45 minutes, radically decreased. And I said, wow, that's amazing. That's not how migraines are supposed to go away. Something's going on here. What did I just eat? What did I just do? And I thought of the fresh squeezed orange juice. So instantly I went to my supplements cabinet and took 5,000 milligrams of vitamin C. And guess what? In about an hour, no migraine. That's called a cure. okay? And I thought I had do the same financial transaction about 5 days ago. I was, unfortunately, it happens though, it's life, very stressed out, and I thought a migraine was coming on again. I took 5,000 milligrams of vitamin C, gone, nothing, when I had the initial symptoms, okay? What's the point here of what I'm talking about? The point is there's nothing to fear. We're smart. We've got all the tools we need. We've got everything we need to be satisfied, happy, the religious creatures that we are. Okay? There's nowhere you need to go, nothing you need to do. You just need to sit and look inside yourself. Okay? Your subjectivity, your consciousness is the apex of spirituality. Okay? The nadir, the opposite of the apex of spirituality, despiritualization, as I call it in my upcoming books, The Telescreen, is our life here in America. I'm very sad to say. It's a life of where families are broken and poverty is rampant and people hate their jobs and confusion over everything that's going on in the world. It's promotion of war. Turn on the TV and they want people really want you to believe all this torture is good and stuff like that. I mean, come on. What is our problem? Okay? We have to go another direction. And the other direction that we need to go is inward. Okay? We're creatures in America who have gotten in this habit of just looking out. Okay? Well, that's not what spiritual creatures do. Spiritual creatures look out and they look in. They look both ways. Okay? Because the spiritual center is in you. Okay? And then only within you can you see that when you look out that the spiritual is outside of you as well. The tree is spiritual. The sky is divine. Okay? The air and the wind and the stillness of this night here in West Lafayette, Indiana is holy. Okay? You're never going to see it. You can think that all you want. You can think about what I just said and say, oh yeah, it's a nice idea. I'm going to go walk around and think everything's holy. You're never going to understand what I'm talking about. You need to feel. Okay? Your inner world is composed of feeling, as I describe in my book, Telementation. Okay? In that feeling is holiness. Okay? And we all need to become it. Well, we already are it, but we need to remember that that's what we are. We need to realize that's what we are. That's where our human revolution has to start. Okay? And until we do that, we're going to be lost, bellicose savages. Okay? Savages in the negative sense, not the positive sense, like the way the word savage used to be used before it became. Anyways, so this is just utter utmost importance. Okay, because this world is going in a bad direction. There's poverty everywhere. The whole world looks like a concentration camp. Africa, Mexico, all over the place. This is not the way it's supposed to be, and I'm not being idealistic, I'm being a realist. You've got huge brains, we've got religion, we've got this ancestry that we see in our religions of these unbelievably brilliant people. Okay? There's something incredible about us, and living in sweatshops in Cambodia making Nike shoes isn't what we're supposed to be doing. That's a concentration camp, by the way. Okay? So, living in prisons because you grew a pot plant, one of the most incredible plants, its seeds of it have the most incredible nutrient imaginable. This is not how it's supposed to be. Okay? So it's time for everybody to get serious, okay? And just listen to the show. You need to start meditation now. You need to start your exercise program. You need to start listening to good radio. You need to start reading the right books, eating good food that empowers you, growing food in your backyard, making weapons, reading spiritual texts. Okay, there's no more time to mess around. The time is now, and you'll see in the next coming months what I'm talking about. Okay, so anyways, this show is winding up. I want to thank everybody for listening to what I hope will become an ultra-powerful force in talk radio throughout the world. Okay, we don't want fame. We want passion. We want spirituality. We want intimacy among people. Okay? All right, well, thanks very much for listening, and we'll catch you next week.